On pole position is number 1, Oliver Bryant, and with him on the front row is Philip Walker in his Lotus 15. So 2 Lotus 15s on the front row, 2-litre Coventry Climax engine cars. On row 2, we've got number 88, being the Lister Jaguar, the Costin Lister Jaguar, started by Richard Kent, and beside it, number 25 is Michael Gans, also with a Lotus 15, 88 and 25, row 2. Row 3, number 8, Will Nuttall starting in one of the so-called knobbly Lister Jaguars, because the body shape is rather knobbly compared with the smooth lines of the Costin Lister ahead of it. So it's going to be starting number 8 by Will Nuttall, and beside it, number 43, is David Hart with his Costin body Lister Jaguar. 8 and 43, row 3. The 4th row, number 29, is the little Lola Mark 1 prototype, the very first proper Lola ever made by Eric Broadley. Number 29 started by Keith Arlers, and beside it, number 51, is the Sandy Watson Lotus 11 Le Mans. Beautiful little car, that one. 29 and 51, row 4. Row 5. Right, we'll carry on with the grid in a moment, because Andrew's got somebody else to talk to.
Yeah, I haven't got David Hart to talk to. You just mentioned there. It's, Olivier, his son's just giving him a bit of a briefing. David, pretty tricky in a Lister in these conditions, I think.
Yes, Mortimer did for me a complete new job on the car, so the setup is completely different. I have to get used on it, although I think the car is much better as it was before. I'm really happy with the car, so it's me, it's not the car, and I have to learn, and I hope I can come further on.
You've got a lot of wonderful classic cars that you race. Do you put the Lister in your top 5? Is it one of your favourite cars?
No, to be honest, during the test drive, I drove this the most. And yeah, I'm starting to like it. First was always the Cobra, but I think the Lister will be, when I can be within the first 3, I will be more happy with the car.
Absolutely. Well, very best of luck, David Hart from Holland.
The race time has started. Now the cars are moving on to their, effectively the second lap of the first full lap. I know it's slightly confusing because of the way that we've got the cars coming out halfway round a lap. So they do half a lap and then they do a full lap and then the race gets underway. But the timing of the race has already started now, which is going to be a race. And Andrew?
Well, sadly, it looks as if the 22 Derek Drinkwater's incredible recreation of Le Monstre isn't going to get a start because it's being held here in the marshalling area. I think he was a reserve, wasn't he? But that's to see this vast machine. So Derek Drinkwater did actually build this car himself, I understand, but it looks as if the Cadillac is not going to make it. But plenty more action out there, Ian, I think, for you to commentate on.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yes, the first reserve was 55, the John Young, Nigel Webb C-Type, but that wasn't on the grid either, I don't think. And the second reserve was the Cadillac, but it was a late entry, so that's the problem, putting an entry in late. The third reserve was, in fact, the Gary Pearson Lister Jaguar, so I'm not sure that he's got into the race. If he has, he'll be having to start from the back, number 12. So Gary may be only in the one car, which is with his brother in the number 2 D-Type. Andrew?
No, the Pearson Lister is actually right behind Le Monstre, so he hasn't started the race. That's a shame.
And do you have 55 there?
Indeed, yes. The 3 of them are all lined up together. Yeah.
Well, those are the 3 reserves, and none of them are going to get into the race by the looks of things. There's the C-Type Jaguar. So those 3 cars, as I said when I got to the end of the grid, there's 58 cars. You can't accommodate anymore. That's a very large grid indeed, one of the largest grids we've ever had at Silverstone, I think I'm right in saying, for any sort of race at any time. And it's only possible because you can have a rolling start. If you didn't have a rolling start, it was a grid start, you wouldn't be able to accommodate this many starters. But 3 left out. It's partly a consequence of combining 2 races, really. The Royal Automobile Club Woodcote Trophy for P56 cars being combined with the Stirling Moss Trophy for the P61 sports cars. Normally they have separate races. Combining the 2 has created an enormous field, but it's obviously prevented certain people from getting a chance to take part in the racing, which is a shame. But there we go. That's the consequence of having to have so many different types of races over the weekend, and they won't get another chance because it's only the one running of this race. So Classic Formula 3, for example, can race again tomorrow. But what a sight this makes. It's a shame that it's all being seen in these overcast, damp conditions, but if the sun was shining, it really would be absolutely magnificent. So the pace car's peeling off into the pit lane, and so Ollie Bryant in the green Lotus 15, the orange Lotus 15 of Philip Walker alongside him, turn into Club Corner. Behind is Richard Kent in the Lister Jaguar, and alongside him is Michael Gans in the white Lotus 15. So they're positioning themselves for taking the best possible advantage, but I think there's little doubt Ollie Bryant's going to lead the way into the first corner. Philip Walker got the drop on him as they came up to the starting line, so it's the orange Lotus 15 that has the advantage at the moment as the cars head up towards Abbey for the first time. And Michael Gans is slotting into second place, or is Ollie Bryant fighting back and preventing him from getting through? He is. Richard Kent being cautious with the power of the Lister, but slides through on the inside, but Ollie Bryant holds the lead. Ollie Bryant leads. Second is Richard Kent in the Costin Lister Jaguar. Third is the orange Lotus Philip Walker, and he's being challenged by Michael Gans.
And up into Village for the first time, and as you say, Ollie Bryant holds that lead. Richard Kent just being very steady through Village, and will that allow Philip Walker to go up on the inside? Yes, it does. Philip Walker takes second place in the orange Lotus, and going up the inside of Richard Kent is the third of the Lotuses, the Michael Gans white one. So it's Lotus 1, 2. No, it isn't, because Philip Walker runs wide at the loop and allows Richard Kent back through. So all this has allowed Ollie Bryant into a relatively very large lead.
Well, Ollie is he's on pole position. He's one of the quickest drivers anyway in this race, and obviously helped by the way in which the others are jockeying for position. So it's Richard Kent who has the lead of that group of following cars as they head into Brooklands. But out in front is Ollie Bryant. Second place is either Richard Kent or Michael Gans. Fourth is Philip Walker. Fifth is the number 43 Lister Costin of David Hart. Perhaps he's getting to like it more. And behind him, I think that's the Lotus 11. Behind him of Sandy Watson, number 51, which Sandy, unless they've done a last-minute switch, Sandy Watson's starting. So down to Copse Corner. Ollie Bryant leads, Richard Kent is second, Michael Gans is third. And there's that Nobly Lister Jaguar with, at the moment, Will Nuttall starting the car. And Sandy Watson going very well in the little Lotus 11. They're back with you, Alistair.
They are, yes. Ollie Bryant comes up into Beckett. Second place is with Richard Kent. And in third place now is Michael Gans. Philip Walker has dropped back into fifth because through has gone the 43 David Hart Lister Jaguar. So David telling Andrew that he wasn't used to the car. The setup had been changed. Well, clearly it's working very well indeed. And we've got one car off onto the outside of Beckett's. Can't see it behind the barriers.
Okay, we might be able to pick that up on the screen in a moment. So Ollie Bryant already pulling well away, and bearing in mind, as we were talking earlier on to Philip Walker and Miles Griffiths, Andrew was, and finding out their views, I think there's little doubt. There's a car on the circuit. That's the Lister Jaguar, number 170 of Peter Ratcliffe, getting back on the track now. Back with the middle of the pack. There's the HWM ahead of the Cooper Jaguar, number 11 of Fred Wakeman, which is normally to be found up near the front of the Woodcote Trophy, which is for the older cars, obviously the P56 cars. The Cooper Jaguar, one of the front runners in that. So here come the leaders, or not the leaders so much on screen, but the second, third, fourth and fifth place cars. So the leader already over the line and long gone. His lead at the end of the first lap already, 4.3 seconds. Ollie Bryant's lead over Richard Kent in second place. David Hart in third place. Michael Gans is fourth. Philip Walker fifth, Will Nuttall in the number 8 Lister Jaguar is sixth, seventh is Sandy Watson, eighth is John Pearson in the D-Type Jaguar, number 2, ninth is 52 John Spears with his Lister Jaguar, and 10th, it's worth keeping an eye on this car, Keith Arlers in the little Lola Mark 1 prototype, number 29, in 10th place. You've got the leader back with you, Alistair.
I have, yes, and I've got a new second man in the form of David Hart, and he goes quite wide at the loop and splashes through a puddle on the outside there, but he's up to second place. Very, very accomplished drive from David Hart, the Dutchman, and Richard Kent, and they're all ganging up on David Hart. Richard Kent, then it's the white Michael Gans Lotus, then the orange one behind, yep. And they're all into Brooklands.
Richard Kent dives down on the inside and repasses David Hart, so the two Costin Listers fighting over second place, ahead of the two Lotus 15s and the Nobly Lister Jaguar hanging the tail out there, Will Nuttall. So it's a great race for second place, but Ollie Bryant is rather spoiling the party as far as the victory is concerned. He's just running away with it. And in these conditions, I think the stress on the car, which has caused it to fail on the last lap on a couple of occasions in these races at Donington Park, and also had problems here at Silverstone in the past. So let's hope that somewhat fragile Lotus 15, it'll give it an easier time in these conditions, and it is going to be Ollie Bryant's race, and there's something very strange happened. He trips over a back marker or something like that. There's the Lotus 15 that Miles Griffiths will be taking over from Philip Walker. Once Miles gets behind the wheel, and Philip would readily admit this, Miles is the quicker driver, and he'll be so far back, I don't think he'll be able to do anything about catching Ollie Bryant. Anyway, they're passing you again, Alistair.
David Hart it is back into second place, Richard Kent third, still trying, Michael Gans, then the number 8 car of Will Nuttall, who's very quick indeed in that car, and he's looking for a way past Michael Gans, but running wide is Richard Kent at Beckett's, so when they come back in on the camera, you'll see, I think, Richard Kent has lost that third place.
Yes, he may have, but he gets it back with the power, and they're side by side as they come down the hanger straight towards Stoke Corner, and Will Nuttall joins in as well with the less aerodynamic Lister, the knobbly Lister Jaguar, and he's squeezed through. Is he into third place? Yes, he has. So Will Nuttall using the power to good effect as he came onto the hanger straight, and he's now got into third place in pursuit of David Hart. Fourth is Richard Kent, being still challenged by Michael Gans in the white Lotus 15, and still going incredibly well with the Lotus 11 is Sandy Watson. Sandy Watson in the smaller, I know it looks like a Lotus 15, but it's a smaller car. The Lotus 11, the predecessor of the Lotus 15 there, Sandy Watson right up behind Michael Gans, Philip Walker just behind there. So 51 leading its class, of course, class S4, the Stirling Moss Trophy class, class 4. So the leaders gone through. Second place, David Hart, and being pursued now by Will Nuttall. Richard Kent fourth, Michael Gans fifth, Sandy Watson sixth, seventh is Philip Walker, John Spears is eighth with his Lister Jaguar, ninth is now number 74, Pat Blake in the Edwards, who's brought the HW, that's a tremendous effort this, because that's one of the older cars, the HWM Jaguar, but Pat Blake in the Edwards up in the ninth place, and 10th in the D-Type Jaguar is John Pearson ahead of Ben Adams. I told you he was one to watch. Ben Adams in the number 57 Lola. Let's keep an eye on him, the Lola Mark 1, number 57. He's come from the nether regions of the grid and is now moving into the top, towards the top 10. Ben Adams in number 57.
Another car to watch could be that Sandy Watson, number 51, because I think Sandy would be happy to say that Martin O'Connell is a quicker driver than him in that car, and Sandy's holding it up there in sixth place. So very strong showing from Sandy.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I've been mentioning that. So the Lotus 11 closing up on the Lotus 15s ahead of it. Well, in fact, it's got ahead of one of them, hasn't it? It's got ahead of the Philip Walker car. But there, in splendid isolation out front, is Ollie Bryant, with the gap between him and David Hart as they started this fourth lap, 7.3 seconds. Will Nuttall, I think, now has asserted himself over Michael Gans, who's going to have to worry about, oh dear, into the gravel, I'm afraid, has gone Richard Kent. Richard Kent, this is how he got there, coming out of Luffield. The back end got the better of him, car slid round into the gravel, and you can see how cross he is, banging the steering wheel. He's not a happy bunny. And what are you going to tell us, Andrew?
I'm wondering about Ollie Bryant starting to back off. He's lapping 3 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else at the moment, and surely he's going to back it off a little bit soon. He's got that substantial lead, but
well, I don't know about that, because in these conditions, accidents can happen, and you want to build up the largest possible lead.
Yes, I think you're right. You can have a spin if you could recover from that. Could cost you 5 or 6 seconds. He'll push on for a while. But it will be interesting to see what happens when O'Connell gets in the car, and indeed some other, Griffiths could also push that car forward.
Ollie on his own, if he was sharing with his dad, I think the others would have a chance, but Ollie on his own is not going to be catchable. And he's got, if he gets held up by a back marker or back marker spins in front of him, that's going to happen later on in the race. Or the pit stop goes wrong, then somebody could catch him. But we've got the safety car.
Oh no!
Yeah, we got the safety car because of Richard Kent going off into the gravel, and that means, of course, that Ollie's big lead is just going to disappear. And in fact, last time around, David Hart, obviously inspired by being interviewed by you, Andrew, David Hart has done the fastest lap of the race, and he really does seem to like driving this car now. And of course, what's going to happen with the safety car, in fact, is that he's going to be right up behind Ollie Bryant once more. So David Hart has come up from, which row was he on? He was on the third row, on the outside of the third row of the grid, and he will be up behind Ollie Bryant. So there's no question, Ollie will have to ease off because of the safety car, obviously. So not what he wanted by any means. So just whilst Richard Kent is gesticulating as if to say, let me drive out. Well, that's not going to happen. He's going to have to be pulled out. Waving his arms. He's quite agitated by this, but it was, I'm afraid, just a little bit of too much right foot on the accelerator as he accelerated through But it's terribly easy to sit on the sidelines and comment on that. Unfortunately for Richard, he was doing it and it went wrong for him. And Joe Osborne, therefore, won't get to drive. And so the safety car's got them all behind him, and the leader is Ollie Bryant from David Hart in number 43. Third is number 8, which is in Will Nuttall at the moment. Then Michael Gans is in 4th place. Sandy Watson is 5th. Philip Walker is 6th in the orange Lotus 15. 7th is John Spears, the Lister Jaguar. 8th is Pat Blakeney Edwards in the HWM Jaguar. I think that's a tremendous effort, that. In 9th place, 57, another car to watch. Now, he's going to be, Ben Adams is going to be right in the mix, in the thick of things here in this car. And he's another solo driver. This little Lola, just with a 1200cc engine, this is a tremendous performance to get this car into the top 10 anyway. But in these conditions, obviously helping it. And so Ben might well be able to make up several more places. Now, I see that the HWM has come in, number 74. Now, we don't yet have the pit stop window open, I don't think, so that must be a problem for the HWM. Behind Ben Adams' Lola, we've got number 2, John Pearson in the D-Type Jaguar. Keith Arles follows in the Lola Mark 1 prototype. Then 144, which was started by James Hansen, wasn't it? The C-Type Jaguar. Well, James is a quick driver, very successful in single-seaters some years ago. An up-and-coming young driver back then. And then we've got Gregory de Prins. That's a good effort. Gregory de Prins in the Regio car that was built by a chap called Rod Easterling back in the late 50s, early 60s, or late 50s for this car. A few of them raced internationally, just occasionally. So it qualified to be eligible to race in this event. And then we've got down in 14th place now, number 11, which is Fred Wakeman with the Cooper Jaguar, the Cooper T38. And in the Stirling Moss Trophy, the leading car is Ben Adams. No, I'm wrong, forget that. The Woodcote Trophy I was looking for, the leading car was Pat Blakeney Edwards with the HWM, but has now become John Pearson in the D-Type Jaguar. So the Lister Jaguar has been, Richard Kent's car has been pulled out of the gravel. He's going to carry on, but of course he's lost a lap or two whilst was being pulled out of the gravel. So the safety car, I hope, will be coming in at the end of the lap that it's currently on, so that we can resume racing with just over half an hour to go of what was originally a 50-minute race. At the moment, the safety car leading them down into Stowe Corner. So what can David Hart do? David, a vastly experienced driver. He's been racing for many, many, many years, mainly in historics, but also in modern GT cars as well. So it's perhaps not too surprising that in these sort of difficult conditions, his years of experience as well as his ability will enable him to move forward in the way that he has. And in a car that... Andrew, go on.
David, 61 years old, you know, and he's from Rotterdam originally. I think he's raced at Le Mans, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
Yeah,
yes.
He is very, very experienced driver, but he's going extraordinarily well in this. I didn't expect to see him be quite as quick.
Cast your mind back decades, actually, probably 20 years. He began racing in an Alfa Romeo in the European Historic Touring Car Championship. I think that's where it all began. Anyway, safety cars peel off into the pit lane, and we're racing once more. So Ollie Bryant now looks in his mirrors and sees 2 types of Lister behind him. The Costin Lister of David Hart. Behind that, we've got the Nobly Lister still in the hands of Will Nuttall, of course, it's yet to make its pit stop. So they're underway again, racing and heading into Village.
Into Village they come, and it's Ollie Bryant who leads. He's opened up a little bit of a gap on second place David Hart, who's got the number 8 Will Nuttall car right behind him. Then it's the couple of the smaller cars that are doing so well, turning through the left-hander. Philip Walker's in trouble, I think. Philip Walker has slowed, has he, on the way into the loop? And I think if he pulls off on the... Yes, Philip Walker, hand up, I'm afraid. That's a shame. That's a car that could have been in the contention for the win. What
happened whilst you were looking one way, Alistair, was that another place gained by Sandy Watson. He dived down the inside of Michael Gans, going into the Village, and that's what's put him into 4th place. So this tremendous drive by Sandy Watson, which is going to be handing over the car to Martin O'Connell. Martin O'Connell is one of the quickest drivers here today. So that car, Sandy's doing a great job. Sandy's been racing for decades. He goes back, probably he's been racing for 40 years. Used to race in the club and sports car category for many, many years. And Ben Adams has got the little Lola, the black Lola, up into 8th place now, number 57. that's another car to watch. There we got then number 43 on the screen, David Hart in the Lister Jaguar, still keeping in touch with Ollie Bryant, although Ollie trying to break away, of course. Cars coming into Beckett's, Alistair.
Yes, but he's not able to break away like he did in the first part of this race, and David Hart certainly keeping very close indeed. Will Nuttall in third, then Sandy Watson ahead of, as you say, Michael Gans now in fourth place. So Sandy now has Will Nuttall in his sights, and it's 3-2 to the smaller engine cars at the moment.
It is, isn't it? So as they come on, those 5 cars come on to Hangar Straight. It's, of course, they're 2-litre engines. The Lotus 15 used to run with a 2.5-litre engine in period, driven by the likes of Graham Hill and Cliff Allison, and they're limited to 2 litres for the most of this category. Philip Walker has caught up with Andrew, or put it the other way round. Andrew?
Well, Philip Walker's just climbed out of the car, and the bonnet has been lifted, and Philip is peering into the engine now to see what the problem is. I'm just going to go around the other side of the car here and see what the mechanics are working on. Philip's still got his helmet on, so it'd be a little bit difficult to no obvious oil leaks or anything like that. So there's a bit of pointing going on. Now the rear body work is going to come off, and as I said, Philip's still got his helmet on. Just to see if I can get him to shout at us and tell us what actually the problem is. Hang on a second. Can I just dive in and ask what the problem is?
Just got a fuel pressure problem.
Fuel pressure problem. Okay, well, there you have it. Fuel
Right.
pressure problem.
And there
So,
you will
back
have
to you.
The pit window, Andrew, is now open, so cars will start coming in. But I guess they'll, as many drivers as possible, stay out. When you've got the quicker driver in the car, he'll stay out for as long as possible. The window is 20 minutes long. It's between 20 and 40 minutes of the race, so they've got a 20-minute window in which to make the mandatory pit stop. There is Keith Arlers with the D-Type Jaguar of John Pearson right behind him, and then the Regio of number 35 of Gregory de Prince, and the Allard. Till Bechtelsheimer are making good progress in the Allard. Now on this lap, David Hart is on the absolute best first sector. Coming out of Luffield now, that leading 5 cars, which is getting a bit more spaced out, but David Hart hanging on to the leader. There we go, back a bit. There's the Keith Arlers in the Lola Mark 1 prototype, followed by John Pearson with Till Bechtelsheimer in the big Allard, number 32. Sorry, that's the other Allard. Wrong, I'm picking the wrong driver. That's the Oliver Llewellyn Allard that's going so well. Apologies to Oliver, not spotting him first time. And challenging John Pearson on the inside as they come out of Woodcote. Ahead of them, there's James Hansen in the C-Type Jaguar. And then Oliver Llewellyn in the big Allard. There in the middle of the pack is Fred Wakeman in the Cooper Jaguar, number 11. And 155 is the Lotus 11 of Harindra de Silva, with his son Tim scheduled to take over. So they've gone, sorry Alice, I missed you out there, but the leader's coming down towards Stoke Corner, and Will Nuttall not going to get close enough there to think about outbraking David Hart. We'll see what the gap is at the end of the lap then. This is their 7th lap, including the safety car laps. Andrew?
The Walker car, Miles Griffiths climbed into it and they push started and it's gone. We got pit stop starting. Ian, did you say Sandy Watson was starting?
Yes.
He's not in the car. He's standing with me.
Right, that explains why the car is going. With no disrespect to Sandy, but the list of start drivers showed him as being the start driver, but they do have a habit of changing at the last minute. So Martin O'Connell is in the car at the moment then.
Exactly, yes.
Well, thanks for clarifying that. I didn't like to sort of argue with the piece of paper I've got here, but yeah, that makes more sense actually, because Sandy, I thought, that's remarkable. Martin O'Connell is what you'd expect. So Martin O'Connell it is who's got the Lotus 11 up into 4th place, and possibly better than that. And Alice, I think you'll agree, that perhaps explains.
It does, and I also didn't want to argue with the paper, but I did think the helmet looked like Martin, but thought Sandy might have changed his helmet, you never know. So the leaders come through, Aintree and Ollie Bryant very, very steadily pulling away, but not much from David Hart, but he's really under pressure now from Will Nuttall, who closed right up at Beckett's that last time around, and equally close as they go down to Brooklands.
Into Brooklands then, turns Ollie Bryant, then David Hart in the Lister Jaguar. they do look great in these conditions. I must say, we just see a lot of cars just going past on the screen. A lot of them are rather dull colours, aren't they? They don't actually, and in these gloomy conditions, they look even duller. It's the cars themselves, rather than the colours, of course, that matter, but not many of them are painted very bright colours. Apart from the Lotus 15, the orange one that's now in the pits with problems. So through goes number 1, Ollie Bryant leading the way, pursued at not a very great distance by David Hart and Will Nuttall, with Martin O'Connell in the Lotus 11. And that Cooper Bristol's made good progress as well. That's John Yore in the number 6 Cooper Bristol that is often shared with Nick Weekly, but Nick too busy running the event, so this year Patrick Watts has a chance to share the car. In fact, there it is coming down the pit lane now. So that's John Yore down the pit lane in the Cooper Bristol ex-Tony Crook car, based on a Formula 2 car, single-seater, but made into a kind of two-seater by Tony Crook, who had a lot of success with the car in the mid-50s. Leader into Stowe Corner on lap 8. David Hart no longer has fastest lap. Ollie Bryant's now got the fastest lap, but they're lapping a very comfortable pace. There's Martin O'Connell's rear view shot of the Lotus 11. Ollie Bryant turning into club. Can choose whenever he wants to make his pit stop in the window. He won't be taking it this time because the pit lane entrance is the one being used for this race. So over the line they go. The gap versus second, just 2.3 seconds. Will Nuttall third, Martin O'Connell fourth. Of course, the option could be Sandy Watson, if the mood takes him, might decide to sit this one out and let Martin do the whole race. Andrew?
Yeah, I got John Pearson down here. Has just climbed out of the D-type, leading the older car section. John, conditions are pretty desperate out there.
Yeah, it's difficult and it's tricky.
Well, there's the D-type go.
There goes Mr. D-type. I was really happy, and then I went off, I think, on the same oil as Richard at the complex. And yeah, at my age it shouldn't have, but it completely threw me. I started making silly errors, but I still really enjoy it. Getting to drive a D-type Jaguar on any day is a real privilege.
Absolutely fabulous. So they're leading the earlier class. So that's the is that the Woodcote class?
That's right, Andrew. The Woodcote Trophy for the pre-56 cars. Yes. Well, obviously the order's going to get a bit jumbled up now. The pit stops have begun, so it'll take a while now for the order to become clear in the Woodcote Trophy. Into the lead of that has gone the number 32 Allard in the hands of Oliver Llewellyn, which has risen to 8th place, but it's got ahead of the C-Type Jaguar of James Hanson. Those two are the leading 2 cars in the Woodcote Trophy. Andrew?
I'm not sure if you mentioned that the 88 car did get back on track.
Yeah.
And in fact, Joe Osborne has just climbed in it now. And we're just waiting, Joe. 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1, and Joe will be driving off. So Joe, who I think is one of the group of people who run those McLaren test days, he's got a full McLaren race suit on. He must race one of the GT4 cars or GT3 cars.
Yeah.
Joe Osborne, as you say, very quick. Be interested to see, obviously, they're out, they're running for the podium, but I think Joe Osborne might put in some very quick times now.
He's in 57th place, Andrew. 57th.
He won't finish there, will he?
No, but no.
Let's just get hold of. Let's just get to Richard Kent here. See what he has to say about her. Can I dive in, Richard? So conditions caught you out of it.
Yes, I think it's fair to say they did. We've just, I was just slightly offline as to where everyone else was on the track. And there's next to no steering lock on the Lister, so as soon as it went sideways, I was just a passenger.
Well, let's see what Joe Osborne can do in it now.
Right, fingers crossed, eh?
Yeah, thank you.
Right, nose to tail then the leaders as they go over the line, and a new fastest lap to David Hart, and the Lotus still leads. In between them is a C-Type Jaguar, but the Lister there in second place is going to get held up by the Lister. They're coming in by the C-Type. They're coming into your side now, Alistair.
Yes, up to Village they come, and there is the C-Type keeps well out of the way, so David Hart slips up the inside. In fact, Ollie Bryant has opened up a little bit of a gap through there, and then as they turn into the loop, Once again, Ollie is able just to keep ahead of David Hart, but it's close for the lead now, and not so far behind is the third-placed car coming through is Will Nuttall, and he's keeping Martin O'Connell at bay in fourth place.
I noticed that the Lister carries that one of the old works registration numbers, VPP9, but I'm not sure that it's the original car. But VPP9 was one of the numbers of the original Lister Jaguars, the works cars driven by Archie Scott Brown. The leader stretching his advantage again slightly, Ollie Bryant, so maybe traffic played a part in that, but certainly David Hart has put in a big effort there, setting the fastest lap of the race. And Ollie Bryant peels him into the pit lane. Ollie Bryant's into the pits, the leader, to make his mandatory pit stop. He has to be stationary for a minute. And I think he's being followed, isn't he, by the Lister Jaguar. So David Hart also into the pits. Now, Andrew, you're somewhere in the pits. Can you get close to one of them with your cameraman so we can see these pit stops for the two leaders? There's the Ollie Bryant Lotus. They'll probably be at the complete opposite ends of the pit lane. There's, right on the spot for the Lister Jaguar. Andrew, you there? Which one are you by? That's the second place Lister Jaguar with a DB2 Aston Martin ahead of it. Andrew.
Yeah, I'm right by the David Hart car. David in an open-face helmet with goggles on. His son Olivier just giving a little bit of advice and timing the pit stop. The team go round with a hammer, just bashing the wing nuts. You know, it's a completely different setup from old cars. Or even just get a camera just to show us this. Just you come down here and say that this is how the wheels are secured, old style, and I've got a special hammer. And just about look, this is the hammer they use to bang the flying wheel nuts on. He was a bit surprised. I took his hammer off him, I think.
I think you're right, Andrew. Yes. Anyway, you give it back.
David Hart goes back in the race.
Okay, and Ollie Bryant will have gone out ahead of him because they were both obviously stationary for the minimum of the minute. But that's the second place car now. Martin O'Connell in the Lotus 11 is now second. In the lead is number 8, Will Nuttall, in the Lister Jaguar. But of course, they've still got to make their pit stops. And we'll pick up where the earlier leading cars have dropped to as a lot of their pit stops as soon as we can. But Martin O'Connell flashing the lights of the Lotus there as he comes past its pit, which signifies no doubt that he's coming into the pits next time. He's in second place in the Lotus 11. It's what can happen in these conditions when you get a really good driver in a little car. They can do something about the bigger cars that normally disappear into the distance in the dry conditions. There's the Manx-Tail Cooper, number 39, of Robbie Bernberg being pushed away. Andrew?
Just quick on that hammer, Ian. I don't know if you noticed, in the old days, when we had hammers like that, they had copper ends, didn't
That's
they?
right.
And that had some sort of polyurethane ends. So that must be that's new technology in historic racing for you.
Yes, a copper clouter is what it used to be known as.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Perhaps still is by some, but it doesn't really sound the same if you say a nylon clouter. Not the same, is it?
Yeah.
Right. The next cars through might well be. Well, Alistair may be able to keep tabs on this. Where do you reckon you've got numbers 1 and 43?
Well, it's 43 and 1 because David Hart got out ahead of Ollie Bryant from the pits, and they've been through past us, and in fact over the line now. So you'll have them.
I guess he got out of the pits quicker than Ollie because he had Andrew threatening him with a hammer, and so he thought. And there's the hammer once more. Yeah.
No, Ian.
Yes.
There's a copper-ended one. You see, that's what we were talking about.
Oh, it's a proper one. It's a proper copper.
It's a proper one. Yeah.
Right.
But this, look, it's really clever. That end isn't copper. Anyway, back to the race.
It's good to have these little vignettes. Michael Gans is now headed into the pits. He was in third place following the earlier pit stops of numbers 43 and 1. So that's put David Hart in front. Now that he's in front, he's going to be a difficult man for Ollie Bryant to find a way past. I wonder how that came about, because obviously they came into the pits the other way round, but there they are now coming down into Brooklands with the... They're not yet back in the lead of the race, I hasten to add, because there's other cars ahead of them that have yet to stop. But those are going to be effectively the leaders of the race once everybody has made their pit stop. And Ollie Bryant determined to find a way back. It seemed to me that minute that they had to be stationary for was quite a long minute when we were there with the camera focused on the Lister Jaguar. So I'd be surprised if it was discovered that it was you get penalised if the pit window isn't fully complied with, if you do stop for less than the designated 1 minute. But at the moment then, it is David Hart ahead of Ollie Bryant as they turn through Copse Corner. But do stress, they're not yet leading the race. The race is being led still by the number 8 Lister Jaguar with Will Nuttall driving it, ahead of the 51 Lotus 11 Martin O'Connell driving it. But we could well find that up into 4th or 5th place this next time around will emerge numbers 43 and 1, still with the Lister ahead of the Lotus. Real challenge for Ollie now. So often he can dominate these races, as indeed he was at the beginning. Then he had the safety car problem. And now as they come out onto the Hanger Straight, Ollie Bryant looking for a way past, but David Hart making sure he occupies the middle of the road. Down the track he comes towards Stoke Corner. Ollie Bryant looks on the outside line, but he can't go there, nor can he dive through on the inside. David Hart then leads the way in this two-way battle for what will become the lead once more as they go through Vale into Club now. The Lotus dive down on the inside and Ollie Bryant takes the lead of this battle. I do stress it's not yet for the lead once more, but it is going to be the lead. So Ollie Bryant gets the lead back under braking at the end of Vale into Club Corner, but David Hart feeds the power in, tightens his line coming through the latter part of Club Corner, gets onto the straight as they go past the pits. He's going to try and accelerate alongside the Lotus, get the inside line as they come up towards Abbey. It's the Lister on the inside, the Lotus on the outside. Here they are right in front of me as they turn through the Abbey right-hander, and now David Hart fights back as they come back into your side, Alistair. The Lotus just in front.
Side by side through Farm, and Ollie Bryant gets a big slide on. That's very unusual for Ollie, but he controls it beautifully, and they're coming up to a couple of slower cars, so he's ahead at the moment of David Hart, but David Hart squirts the power of the big Jaguar engine up towards the loop, and he comes up almost alongside, but the traction is better from the Lotus. A little slide from David Hart as they come through towards Aintree, but it's still Ollie Bryant ahead in that little battle there as they go under the bridge.
Yes, now they have to make their way through past a couple of slower cars that time. Now as they come down under the vehicle bridge into Brooklands, it's the Lotus in front of the Lister just. Ollie Bryant ahead of David Hart, who did the best he could, very neatly, as skillfully as well. You can see he's a vastly experienced driver, David Hart. He's won here in the past in his AC Cobra, so he does know how to go well round here. I think also in the Ferrari he won here one year as well. So anyway, David Hart and dropping away slightly now from the Lotus 15 of Ollie Bryant. And yet to stop is the Lotus 10. It's now stopping, so that means next time around we'll have the situation restored to how it was before the pit stops, with the Lotus number 1 Ollie Bryant shown as the leader, because into the pits have come Will Nuttall in the number 8 Lister Jaguar to hand over to the number 8 car to Tony Wood. Then we've got 51 in as well, Martin O'Connell to hand over to Sandy Watson unless Sandy decides to sit it out. John Spears has come in as well, number 52 from 3rd place. 4th, number 10 Rick Bourne, now handing over to Malcolm Paul, and then in 5th place last time around was Ollie Bryant, and behind him David Hart. They're now going to move into the lead next time through.
And Will Nuttall has come out right behind David Hart from the pit lane.
Well, that was a quick pit stop. Well, no, it can't be a quick pit stop. I'm sure they did it in a minute. They obviously benefited from staying out a bit longer, if he's that close. So there is the leader in a load of traffic, which will be a feature of the remainder of the race, which has 12.5 minutes to go. Andrew, you've got Will with you, I think.
Yes, Will's just taking his crash helmet off. Will, you brought the car in the lead, but maybe you didn't have quite the pace of the two in front of you.
I don't know, I thought we're there or thereabouts. It's difficult with the traffic, and there was a Allard pumping oil out in front of me, which didn't help I'd have thought we'd have come out quite safely in 3rd place. I knew Martin was behind me and he's sharing with Sandy, so there's no hope of that one being too close to us at the end. So we just need to be there or thereabouts, and that's my job anyway, done.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. Enjoyed it more if it was dry, I think.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Will.
Enjoying it in a masochistic sort of way, yeah. And yes, so if Sandy Watson has taken over number 51 from Martin O'Connell, then it won't be the threat that it is in the hands, the Lotus 11 in the hands of Martin O'Connell. Anyway, there is Ollie Bryant, now confirmed as the leader over the line at the end of the 12th lap, now on lap 13. And the gap between the two of them as they started lap 13, between Ollie Bryant and David Hart in the Lister Jaguar was 3.3 seconds. But traffic will play its part. We're not all commenting on the traffic as well. More cars being lapped. Lotus 11 there being lapped by Ollie Bryant in the Lotus 15. You can make the comparison there between the Lotus 11 and the Lotus 15 shapes. Similar, but far from identical. There's a Cooper Monaco, the number 18 car, now in the hands of Anthony Ditheridge. I think everybody has made their pit stop now. Yes, they have. So the last one just being completed, and on the screen I can see that all the cars still in the race have made one pit stop. So it is now a race to the line between the drivers and the cars at the moment. 10 minutes and 45 seconds of the race duration remain. Just lapping the flat iron Lister there is the number 85 Lister being lapped by the Costin Lister. Number 85, the car of Stephen Bond. Just to take stock then of what's happening in the different sections of the race. In the Stirling Moss Trophy, obviously that's the first place, the leading places. It's obviously Ollie Bryant leading from David Hart, from now Tony Wood in number 8, Lister Jaguar, Michael Gans in number 25, Lotus 15. Fifth is now Sandy Watson in number 51, and sixth and 52, John Spears. Then in the Woodcote Trophy, the leader at the moment is Gary Pearson in the number 2 D-Type Jaguar, having taken over from his brother John. Behind him is number 6, which is now being driven by Patrick Watts, so that's worth keeping an eye on. The gap between those two, yes, the Woodcote Trophy battle is very, very close, just under a second between Gary Pearson in the D-Type Jaguar and Patrick Watts in the Cooper Bristol, the maroon Cooper Bristol, number 6. And then third in the Woodcote Trophy is the Allard, number 32, but this isn't the one that was pumping out the oil. The now being driven by Tim Llewellyn, number 32, which is there in 9th, 10th and 11th places. But between the top two in the Woodcote Trophy, there is just 0.78 of a second. So we'll try and get a fix on that as well. And that is Sandy Watson's helmet. So Sandy is in the 51 Lotus 11, being shadowed by an Aston Martin DB2 as he turned through Stowe Corner, and not really getting away from it either, is he? So how far back is Sandy likely to fall? Well, the next car behind him is the Lister Jaguar, number 52 of John Spears. And he's not that far behind at all, you can see that. The Lister Jaguar just coming through Club Corner now, and will possibly get ahead of Sandy even before they get to the next corner, which is the right-hander here in front of me at Abbey. John Spears looks for the inside line, decides not quite yet, but he'll probably make the move, Alistair, when he gets into your side. Meanwhile, well, let's hear from Martin O'Connell. Andrew.
Martin, when we saw the car going so quickly at the start, we were told that Sandy was driving it. That's what it said on the paperwork, but it was obviously you.
No, it was Sandy. He's done the whole race on his own. No, it was really fun, actually. Really good few laps. Yeah, it was excellent.
Very, very slippy out there. I mean, there's quite a bit of oil down as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty slippy, but not compared to what it used to be. Obviously, the new surface is pretty good, and yeah, it's not a spray, actually, which is surprising because it doesn't look that wet, but it's been tricky enough, but the car's really nice, and yeah, it was a good race, so we'll see if we can just get to the end and see where we end up.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for your time.
Well, they're leading their class still. The nearest rival in the class, Stirling Moss Trophy Class 4, is a long way down. It's Gregory de Prins, in fact, in the Regio, number 35. So I think they should win their class, but they're not going to be a candidate for the top 3 overall anymore, I wouldn't have thought. How's Ben Adams getting on? Ben Adams in the loader I was talking about earlier on, number 57. He's in 11th place. He's second in class S1, the Stirling Moss Trophy class. Meanwhile, the Woodcote Trophy, it's still headed by, yes, in fact, Gary Pearson pulling away now from Patrick Watts. Gary Pearson in the D-Type Jaguar, number 2, in 9th place overall, is pulling away from Patrick Watts in the number 6 Cooper Bristol. But those 2 cars, the leading 2 cars in the Woodcote Trophy. And third in the Woodcote Trophy is now, Martin Stretton is worth picking up on as well if we can. Martin Stretton in the number 15 Maserati 250S. He's just taken third place from the Allard of Tim Llewellyn in the Woodcote Trophy. So Martin Stretton, the number 15 Maserati, 13th overall. Now, how much has he got to make up to catch? Not a huge amount. He could actually, I think there's an outside chance that they could win the Woodcote Trophy. The Woodcote Trophy. So that's another car to focus on if we can, the number 15 car with Martin Stretton at the wheel of the Maserati. It's a good-looking car as well, apart from being a relevant car to the race positions. There's the leader, we've seen a lot of now, but I think it's fair to say that Ollie Bryant has done what's necessary. He's vanquished the Lister Jaguar and is now being to pull away from it. There behind is the Fraser Nash Le Mans replica. Great car from the early 1950s, great little sports car from the early 50s. Very valuable cars, these. Now onto the Hangar Straight. There's the other D-type Jaguar in the race, not the one that's the Woodcote Trophy, number 9, the car that's now being driven by Carl Jones. There is Martin Stretton in number 15. Now this is going to be quite a sight to see. Martin, as we know, a very, very quick driver, comes out onto Hangar Straight. He is chasing after, he's at the moment in 13th place. Ahead of him is on the road is number 170, which is the Peter Ratcliffe Lister Jaguar. Probably Lister Jaguar, but the ones you can see him working away at the wheel there, controlling the sliding beautifully. We're going to be seeing Martin out later on in the Formula 1 race, of course, but at the moment in the Maserati coming down into Tub Corner. And the Elva ahead of him is a lap down, so he hasn't got to worry about that. What he needs to catch, if he can, is the Cooper Bristol of Patrick Watts. Working away at the wheel there, some great wheel twirling going on by Martin. And he goes through in still 13th place, but that's what his lap times are, 2:51 that time, so he's actually not lapping on that lap quicker than the cars ahead. Round the outside of the Elva. And coming into, you've got him now, Alistair, in front of you, Martin Stretton.
Yes, chasing after the green and yellow car ahead, which, as you say, is a battle for position for Peter Ratcliffe. Yeah, Martin hasn't, we've been watching it for a couple of laps and he's not closed up a tremendous amount. Peter Ratcliffe may have got a pit board telling him what's going on. Also good wheel twirling going on from Patrick Watts, just ahead, second in the Woodcote Trophy, car number 6.
Yeah. Now there is Peter Ratcliffe in the number 170 Lister Jaguar, Knobbly Lister Jaguar. We had a change. Sandy Watts has dropped a place down to 6th place, still leads the class, but he's been passed by John Spears in his Lister Jaguar, number 52. So John Spears, number 52, is now 5th overall. First and second separated by 4.7 seconds. Ollie Bryant in the number 1 Lotus 15 leads. Second is 43 David Hart in the Lister Jaguar. Third is now number 8, the Lister Jaguar that was being driven by Will Nuttall, now being driven by Tony Wood. Michael Gans is 4th, 3.3 seconds behind the Tony Wood Lister Jaguar. And then 5th is 52 John Spears, just going through now. He's 45 seconds behind the leader. And in 6th place, it still will be, I think, we're going to find Sandy Watson. But he is at risk of, is he? No, possibly not time enough left. There isn't time enough left for him to be caught by Billy Bellinger, who's now taken over from Keith Arlers in the Lola prototype, Mark 1 prototype. So with just under 3 minutes remaining, the leader makes his way through Woodcote Corner, and there'll be time for one more lap after this one. There's 1:44, that's the C-Type Jaguar that was started by James Hansen, now being driven by Paul Potchgill. It's down in 22nd place. And the leader coming up towards Maggots, Alistair, not for the last time, but for the last time but one.
Yes, as he has had the whole of the race virtually, lots of traffic about, and Ollie Bryant, very good driver indeed, very experienced, makes his way past one slower car, puts that between himself and second place David Hart, goes through the last element of Beckett's and gets past the second slower car, which leaves David Hart with 2 cars between him and leader Ollie Bryant. Will Nuttall through as well. Yes. Tony Wood through as well in car number 8.
Yeah, yes, Tony Wood may have come out right behind David Hart, but he's nowhere near him now. He's 18.5 seconds behind, so he's dropped well back. So I find it surprising, but anyway, that is the situation according to the clock. David Hart has driven a very impressive race, even if ultimately the skill and experience of Ollie Bryant has proved more than a match in this Lotus 15, which Ollie has had so much success with over the years. So there's second place David Hart in the Lister Jaguar, turning through Club Corner, going through onto the last lap. Leader ahead of it, passing a Cooper Monaco and a Cooper Bristol, two different types of Cooper sports racing car. Number 33, the Cooper Bristol, 33, the Cooper Bristol of now Oliver Phillips driving the car. There's David Hart coming back into your sight for the final time, Alistair.
Up to Village, and Ollie Bryant clear track in front of him as he turns into the tight right. There goes David Hart, just gets slipping by into Village past a slower car, so they're together on the track, but Ollie Bryant seems to have this under control now. Oh, in fact, David Hart has a big slide in the loop, collects it all up, continues to drift the car through Aintree on the power, and down the Wellington Straight once again.
Just ahead of them there's Simon Hadfield in the Aston Martin DB3S of Wolfgang Friedrichs, number 7. Now where is that? In 22nd place. And in the Woodcote Trophy, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's in 7th place in the Woodcote Trophy, the Aston Martin DB3S. You haven't really had a chance to look at that car. It hasn't stood out in the way it often does, except by its appearance. Then it's lost in the pack of how many cars will say started the race. 58 cars started the race, and most of them are still circulating, which attributes. There's the Connells on the right-hand side, number 31. The ALS Connell. There's Simon Hadfield in the Aston Martin DB3S, and he is about to be lapped by Ollie Bryant in the Lotus 15. But then the Lotus 15 is a different generation of sports racing car than the Aston Martin, which is a car from the early 50s. The Lotus 15, a car from 1957-58. And yes, the time is up, so the checker flag will be put out to the leader. Well, yellow flags are being put out because of something happening.
Yes, yellow flags at Beckett's, with Richard Guy putting his D-type into the gravel at Beckett's.
Well, we're so near the end now that I don't think it'll... so there it is, well embedded in the gravel, I'm afraid. But back with the leader, then working his way through traffic. Just ahead of it is the Lotus Mark 10, number 10, of Malcolm Paul now. And the later Lotus, the Lotus 15, again a different generation of Lotus really, although there was only a few years between them. But Ollie Bryant in the Lotus 15 into Vale. He'll pass the Lotus Mark 10 as they goes into Club Corner. Just ahead of him is the C-type Jaguar number 20 of Rudiger Friedrichs, which has a somewhat subdued race. That is in 21st place, but in first place and coming up to the checkered flag, Ollie Bryant then wins the combined Royal Automobile Club Woodcote Trophy for P56 sports cars, but more importantly, the Stirling Moss Trophy for P61 sports cars. That's the category of the race. There were two races going on really at the same time there. So the Stirling Moss Trophy and the race overall won by Ollie Bryant after a very strong drive, just 3 seconds behind him at the flag. David Hart in the Lister Jaguar, number 43, takes second place. Third place there goes to the Nobly Lister Jaguar, number 8. Tony Wood at the wheel at the end. Will Nuttall, having started the race in the car, number 8, takes the flag in third place. In fourth place should go to the Swiss-American driver, Michael Gans, number 25, in his Lotus 15, the white Lotus 15. After a good steady drive, fast drive, takes fourth place. Fifth place will go to the car you can see on the screen, the Lister Jaguar, number 52, of John Spears. And there in the gravel is Sandy Watson. It is, yes, number 51. So all the hard work of Martin O'Connell undone by Sandy right at the end there. So he's not going to win his class, I'm afraid. So Sandy Watson not taking the flag in sixth place. But it's his car, he pays the money for it. So Martin O'Connell will just have to grin and bear it. So that means that sixth place should go to the Lola of Keith Arles, and finishing it, Billy Bellinger, the number 29 Lola Mark 1 prototype. It'll be a while before it arrives. It was some 17 seconds behind Sandy Watson as they started that last lap. And in fact, he was passed on that last lap just up to the line. They were side by side nearly by Pat Blakeney Edwards, doing great things as ever he does in whatever he drives. The number 11 Cooper Jaguar finishing in sixth place, just half a second ahead across the line of the Lola, which still wins its class. and Pat Blake was in the Cooper Jaguar, started by Fred Wakeman, finishes 6th, number 11. 7th, number 29 for Keith Arlers, and then Billy Bellinger, Lola Mark 1 prototype. In 8th place, and winning the Woodcote Trophy, I reckon, the number 2 D-type Jaguar of John Pearson and then Gary Pearson. In 9th place, number 6, the Cooper Bristol of John Yaw and then Patrick Watts, finishing the two of them 3 seconds apart of the flag. In 10th place, the next of the little Lolas, number 57, Ben Adams. And in 11th place, Peter Ratcliffe in the Lister Jaguar, number 170. In 12th place, and 3rd in the Woodcote Trophy, I reckon, was Martin Stretton and Richard Wilson's Maserati 250S. There's the overall positions on the screen. Ollie Bryant, the winner then, in the number 1 Lotus 15. 2nd, David Hart in the Costin Lister Jaguar, number 43. 3rd, Will Nuttall and Tony Woods Lister Jaguar, number 8. In 4th place, Michael Gans, Lotus 15, number 25. 5th, number 52, John Spears, Lister Jaguar. In 6th place, number 11, Fred Wakeman and Pat Blake. It was just nicking that place on the last lap at the line from Keith Arlers and Billy Bellinger's Lola Mark 1. In 7th place. In 8th place, John and Gary Pearson with the D-Type Jaguar, effectively 1st place in the Woodcote Trophy. Behind them, 2nd in the Woodcote Trophy, 9th overall, the Patrick Watts, John Yaw, Cooper Bristol. And in 10th place with the Lola Mark 1, Ben Adams, number 57, also running in the Stirling Moss Trophy part of the race. Those are the top 10. But before we do that, we will have a chance to see some of the highlights of that very busy race. So here we go.
First of all, including the overall top 3, a huge Silverstone Classic trophy in the hands of Oliver Bryant and a garland around the neck as well. Well done to, and our thanks to Carlo Ruggeri, the operations manager for Lister. All of the drivers will now bunch up together on the top step of the podium if they possibly can. And now we're ready with our podium presentation for the Royal Automobile Club Woodcote Trophy, and we'll get these driver pairings onto the podium in reverse order again. First of all, at the far end of the podium, and Peter steps forward to offer congratulations to Martin Stretton and to Richard Wilson, and then at this end of the podium, Robert Crofton from EFG will make the presentation to John Ewer and Patrick Watts, and then Peter step forward, if you please, to make the presentation to John Pearson and Gary Pearson on the top step of the podium. They get 2 garlands as well, which go around the neck in the drizzle here at Silverstone.